With having so many dogs on your property, walk me through a little bit of the upkeep. What are some of the daily things you have to do, monthly things you have to do, etc.?
All right, so when I get up in the morning, I usually get up and make me a cup of coffee, sit in the recliner and drink that. And then after I do that, I slip on my shoes or boots, depending on the weather, and go out there and I wash the kennels in the mornings and just give a quick review and see how everybody's doing. I'll open up the water drains, let them drain out while I'm washing, and then when I'm done washing, I close the drains and then fill the water back up, so everybody's got fresh water for the next 24 hours. If it's hot, sometimes they'll play in the water and splash it down low, so in the evenings I'll top it off. I like to wash the kennels twice a day. The reason why I like to do that is if the kennels are washed twice a day, it takes about probably 20 to 30 minutes each time. Probably closer to 30 minutes. But if I do it once a day, it takes about an hour. So it's about the same amount of time. But if you ever are gone for, let's say, a whole day and you don't get to it until late the second day, it's not a 1 hour wash, it's a 2 hour wash. And people might say, yeah, but that's two days. But yeah, it's just, who wants to spend 2 hours in the kennel washing fecal matter? So I like to do it twice a day, because in 30 minutes what I can do is I can put on my earbuds. They tend to hold the charge for they're not real good ones, they only hold my son's old ones, so maybe the battery's weak. They hold the charge for probably about 40 minutes, and I can listen to some biblical scripture or something that I'm studying, whatever it is that I'm studying, while I'm washing the kennels. So it's not wasted time. It's kind of like start my morning peacefully, and people might say, how is that peaceful? Well, it's because in the morning the dogs are calm. They're not crazy. Even though they're excited to see me, they're not crazy when I wash. They know what I'm doing, and they just excited to see me, but they're not barking. And it's just a calm time to get out there in the morning and wash the kennels. And to a degree, I kind of enjoy it in the mornings. It's a quiet time. Ironically, a lot of people think the dogs would be noisy, but they're really not when I'm washing the pens. The noisy time with the dogs are going to be when a stranger comes up, or feeding time. Both of those times are really loud, and so I like to have everything set up when I get ready to feed, so I can feed very quickly. That way, I try to minimize the noise. So when I say I wash twice a day, the first wash is in the morning, and the second wash is before feeding. And since I have nice, clean kennels that are with a concrete floor, I don't use dog bowls. I just shoot the dog food under the kennel gate, and it's on cleaned concrete, and it's also slightly wet with water. In the morning I'll use the Wissy wash, which is like a bleach water. We don't use that every time. We maybe use that 2 or 3 times a week, but I use the hose 3 or 4 times a week in the morning, and I use the Wishy wash 2 or 3 times a week to keep everything clean. In the afternoon, I only use the hose, and the reason why I do not use the Wissy wash in the afternoon is because I don't want any bleach water mixing in with the food. So the kennels are clean. They're clean. They're eating off of a clean concrete floor that's slightly wet. That gives them a little bit of water with their kibble, so they're less likely to choke and stuff like that. They don't get a dry piece stuck in their throat. Never had that happen except for once with a puppy, and I saved the puppy. I just had to give it the Heimlich, and a piece of dog food shot out of its throat. But that was only because puppies. If you feed puppies in a bowl, I don't even feed puppies in a bowl anymore because of that. Because if you feed puppies in a bowl, there's this piranha mentality of, let me hurry up and eat my share before everybody else eats my share. So what I do now is I put the dog food in the puppy kennel, and I spread a line like I'll just pour the bowl slowly, or pour the scoop slowly, and I'll walk as I pour it, so the pups don't have another pup right in their face eating their food. It reduces competition, reduces dog aggression by spreading it out when the pups eat. Plus, it's on the wet concrete now, and I don't have any choking issues. Then about once a week, we'll do a doghouse wash in the kennels that have a doghouse, and my old kennels have doghouses year-round. My new kennels, we only have doghouses in there when it gets basically below 45 degrees, 50 degrees, probably 50 degrees. I don't really think about the temperature. I just think about the feel. But it's probably around 50 degrees. And it's mainly for the smaller dogs. The bigger dogs, they don't need a doghouse until it gets like down to freezing or, 35 degrees, close to freezing. They just don't get cold like that. So if every doghouse gets washed once a week, the whelping boxes, they have to be flipped over because they're lifted up off the ground a little bit. Not much. You can't even see it probably in the videos. But if you look really closely, there may be like a half-inch gap between the whelping box and the concrete. And that's because they're on coasters. And so you can roll them around a little bit. And this allows me to push them out and flip them over and wash underneath it. And the reason we have it lifted up is because in the wintertime, I don't want the base of that whelping box sitting on cold concrete. So it provides an air barrier for insulation. So they have that air gap between the concrete and the board. So the mother's laying in the doghouse, that heats up the board, which heats up the air underneath it, and the puppies aren't laying in cold spots that are through conduction, cooled down by the concrete in the wintertime. So, of course, we use bedding in the wintertime, and I absolutely hate using bedding. A lot of people love bedding because they feel like it's just a good way to deal with dogs. Dogs do better without bedding if they don't need it. Of course, they need it in the cold weather, but if there is not cold weather, I don't want any bedding because it's just a place that harbors bacteria. It's a place that if you get fecal matter and bedding mixed together, remember that's how they used to make bricks, by getting straw and fecal matter, and they'd smash it and dry it out, and it just gets glued to the concrete. It makes a mess. And when you have that mess in there, you're promoting bacteria, even if you are cleaning your kennels regularly, because every time you clean a kennel, there may be a spot here you miss or a spot there you miss, So anytime that, although we try to be very, very thorough, realize I'm cleaning 5,000 square feet every time I do it.
Yeah.
So, you just miss a spot here in the corner of a doghouse or something. So, I use bedding, of course, anytime we have a litter and it's probably below, let's say 70 degrees, I'll use bedding. And you might think, well, that's not very cold. You're right. It's not very cold. I don't use, but if it's, in the 80s, I'm not going to use bedding, even when we have pups, because the mother can keep them an extra. The pups need to be at 90 degrees when they're, born. They need to be around 90 degrees. And you have a mom in a doghouse and it's 80 degrees outside, she'll heat it up to about 90 degrees because they also get up next to her and stay next to her body and stuff like that. But when the temperature gets down to like 70, we'll put bedding in the dog houses. And when the temperature gets, like below 55 or something, I'll reduce the door size. Like what we'll maybe do is get a 2x4 and I'll screw it into the top of the dog house because heat rises up and then goes out the top of the dog house. So we'll reduce the door size by adding a 2x4. And if it gets below like 40 degrees, I'll throw blankets over the dog house. So now they have a curtain hanging over the door as well as an extra insulated layer across the whole doghouse. So that's your typical day. We obviously will do breedings when we check for females in heat once a month. We also deworm with ivermectin at least once a month. It's better, in my opinion, to do it once every 2 weeks, but we always try to do it on the 1st. And if I think about it, around the 14th and sometimes in the middle of the month, we'll hit them again. We also have to maintain communication with our clients on text message or phone calls or Facebook Messenger or email, and that can be pretty time consuming. We have some people that like to send us messages all the time, and that's cool and dandy because you do develop relationships with people, but sometimes it can be a little overbearing, and not because you mind the message, it's because you want to attend to all your needs, and it can become a distraction. And so you have to be mindful on that proper way of managing distractions from what's prudent.
Mm-hmm. When you're bringing a new dog to the yard, what are some of the things you do first as far as quarantining and things of that nature?
Yeah, so we use the Wissy Wash because it's a diluted bleach mixture that's not too strong. It's about like a swimming pool. Okay, so if you jump into a swimming pool and they have chlorine in it, you can tell that there's chlorine in it. Maybe a little bit stronger than your average swimming pool. Swimming pool. If you go in there with a brand new pair of shorts or something, they kind of fade a little bit. They don't get bleach spots on them, but they'll fade a little bit. Well, the Wissy Wash is just a little bit stronger than that. I mean, I've got it splashed in my eyes or something, and it doesn't burn. Some people may be more sensitive than me, but it doesn't bother me. I get it on my clothes, and some clothes might bleach, and some clothes won't. It kind of depends on what the material's made of. If you have anything that's made out of like a nylon, it's not going to bleach it. If you have some khaki pants, it might bleach it. But we use the Wissy Wash to wash the dog, let them soak for about 5 minutes, and then we Wissy Wash them again. And the reason why I Wissy Wash them a second time is I want that water to soak into their skin and get all the dust and dirt that's on the dog's body, the dander that's on the dog's body. I want it to be hydrated and soft. And then I wash them a second time with the Wissy Wash, and then I take them to the kennel, and we put them in the kennel, and that way if they picked up anything in transport or something like that, as long as it's not ingested, it's fine. I wash the dog's whole body. It doesn't bother them. I've washed puppies with it before. I just watched on puppies. I'm careful around the eyes, but I do that just because it keeps disease down, it keeps bacteria down, and I guarantee you it produces a healthier facility. The same thing is when I worked at the Cincinnati Zoo, they would clean animals when they would bring them in, if possible. So obviously, some animals you can't because they're dangerous, but if possible, they would clean the animals. And pretty much any animal can be washed if it's caged or confined a little bit. But that can, I don't want to be abusive to the animal. I'm not like blasting it in its face while it's tied up and restrained. We're careful. We're caring to the animal. If it's an aggressive animal, you might have to do that. But I'm not dealing with animals that I don't trust. So we just restrict them and pet them and tell them good dog, and we'll get the Wissy Wash and we'll turn it on kind of gentle and just saturate their body with that mixture and let it sit and praise the animal, and then we rinse it off. And I shouldn't say rinse it off. We wash it a second time, and then if you know anything about bleach, it has to sit for a couple minutes to do its job. And again, this is, if you look at the Wissy Wash, I think they say it's about equivalent to a 1 in 20 dilution. And don't know if you know anything about exfoliants, but my understanding is 1 in 15 solution is like an exfoliant that people put on their face. So I would not do that. If you're a listener, I would not do that without confirming it, because I'm just going off of memory. But my point is a 1 in 20 concentration is, and this is not a 1 in 20 mixture like with chlorine. This is already, it's made for human use, everyday human use, for washing your patios and stuff like that. It's made for kennels and things like that, so it's very safe.
Mm-hmm. What we talked about before and what I wanted to touch on again was your exact cross of Bandog. Why less Mastiff?
Mastiffs, they have several issues that I don't like. There's a few traits. There's like 4 or 5 traits that I want to get from a Mastiff. I want durability. I want power. I want strength. I want defense. I want loyalty. Those are the things that I want from the Mastiff. Everything else with the Mastiff, as far as I'm concerned, is pretty much negative. Generally speaking, you can find individuals that are anomalies and exceptions, and that's what I looked for when I selected my breeding stock. I was looking for the dogs that did not have these faults. But let's be honest, the breeds in general have these faults. So even if you find an anomaly, don't think it's not going to produce these faults, because the anomaly seldom produces what it really is consistently. It will produce some like that, but it'll also produce more of the norm. There's a tendency for breedings to go back to the norm. You turn little dogs into the wild, their offspring get bigger. You turn giant dogs into the wild, their offspring get smaller. There's this natural tendency of an evolutionary process for things to fall back to the average. And so even though you have a Mastiff that may have great heat tolerance, great health, great athleticism, is clean, can work a long time, take heat, those things are anomalies. So those things are also very important to me. I don't like a dog that sheds a lot. I don't want a dog that drools a lot. I don't want a dog that really drools ever, except for maybe while it's eating and drinking. And even then, it's not really drool. It's more of saliva. Like you won't even see it hanging from their mouth, but if you reach down and touch their lips, they might be wet because they're eating and drinking. I want a clean, very little shedding, very little drool. I want a dog that can work in hot weather. I want a dog that's very healthy and very athletic. And that's why I don't like a big dog. The other thing is I like a packable dog. I don't want a dog that's so big that it's in my way if I'm in a car. Mm-hmm. Or if I have to climb, if I'm hiking and I want to, which, I did a lot of this when I was young. So there's certain parts of my mindset that was influenced by my lifestyle when I was young. When I was in my 20s and 30s, I would go hiking quite a bit and cycling quite a bit. And I remember hiking with dogs that I would get to areas and I don't like having to pick up a dog and carry it over obstacles. And Mastiffs can't really climb a 8-foot or 10-foot wall. And a pit bull, you might think, well, a pit bull can't, or American Sentinel can't jump 10 feet. No, it can't jump 10 feet, but it can jump 5 and take a step, and then jump another 3 and take another step and jump another 2 and be at the top. Mm-hmm. So agility to be able to run over, ravines and cliffs like that, you have to be able to do that if you're going to hog hunt or hike. And I like that agility and athleticism and packability. If I'm in an automobile and I want the dog to be able to sit in the front seat of the passenger car while I'm driving in the driver's seat, I don't want a dog that's so big that it's cumbersome and you try to reach for the air conditioner and it's drooling on your arm and You got hair all over the place and just drooling on top of your drink that you have sitting in your cup holder, that kind of crap. I like something that's convenient, not something that's a burden. A dog should be an asset, not a liability. Mm-hmm. And all these things that I like, cleaning up drool, cleaning up hair from shedding, having to pick up a dog and carry it to a certain place, or having to take it to the vet to treat hip dysplasia. These are all liabilities. These are not assets. Mm-hmm. So I want a dog to be an asset in every way. Protection, food acquisition, companionship. Mm. Health. If I want to go for walking, the dog should be able to, or jogging, the dog should be able to go jogging with me or cycling with me. Of course, the dog's going to have to run, but the dog that's healthy, it'll be able to do those things. But if the dog does not have good heat tolerance, it can't do those things.
Right. So explain the difference between gameness and dog aggression. What's happening in the dog's mind in those two areas?
All right. Well, dog aggression is a lot of times stimulated by fear or dominance. And even dominance can be related to fear because rank is responding to a perceived challenge or perceived threat. And so, when I say threat, I don't mean a bear coming into a lion's den. I mean a bigger dog coming in to threaten my alpha position in my pack. That's a perceived threat. So rank and dominance is the desire to dominate. And some animals have dog aggression because they want to dominate other dogs, or they're insecure, maybe like a Chihuahua, where they're always scared of another dog. That's dog aggression. But dog aggression and gameness is different. You can have a game dog that's not necessarily dog aggressive. I think those are maybe not real common, but they do exist. And the reason they exist and the reason it's not real common is because basically dog aggression to a game dog, a lot of times those dogs don't start off dog aggressive. They might be after they have an encounter, but before they have an encounter, if they're not a rank driven dog, because you can be rank driven and fight driven or game at the same time. But if you're not rank driven, but you're still game and prey driven, but you don't recognize another dog as your prey, then they might even be social around another dog. But the problem is when they have that combat, they're happy to be there. They enjoy it. And so then the dog aggression kind of develops like polishing a trigger on a gun. It just makes that trigger easier to pull and fire. So, to me, a dog aggressive dog is a really fine trigger, but you're shooting like a BB. Or you could be shooting a BB, or you could be shooting a 45, or you could be shooting a 50 caliber or a 454 Casull. It could be something weak, or it could be something strong. You don't really know. It's just a weak trigger. It's easy to set it off. But that's dog aggression, easy to set off. But gameness is different. Gameness has nothing to do with what it takes to pull the trigger. It could be a 1 pound hair trigger. It could be a 4 pound standard 4 or 5 pound trigger, or it could even be a ridiculous, very tolerant animal that's not easy to set off, like a 10 pound trigger on some crappy trigger job on a double action revolver or something. Could be very hard to set it off, but once it goes, all those dogs, it's like 454 Casull. You're getting a big punch, and they're glad to be there, and they're happy to be there, and they're going to deliver, get the job done, because they're not concerned about self-preservation. A game dog is not concerned about self-preservation, but a rank dog is, because a rank dog fighting for dominance, so it can do what? So it can breed, so it can have territory, so it can have food acquisition, so it can just have a position. Well, if a dog's concerned about itself, those things won't come if it dies. So a dog that's fighting out a rank is the primary objective is to preserve the future acquisition. That's what a dog that's fighting for rank is trying to preserve the future acquisition. A dog that's fighting for gameness doesn't care about future acquisition because it enjoys what it's doing right now. You'll see some of these animal rights activists, even though I'm not involved in game dogs and matching dogs or anything along those lines, one of the things that is a pet peeve of mine is when you see these animal rights activists saying these people are making these dogs do that. All right, that's true for like the super amateur and ignorant full level. That is not the case with people that are at the upper levels. They do not want to make a dog do anything, because if you have to make the dog do it, it's unreliable. And these people that are at the upper levels have money on the line. So they're looking for the animal that wants to do it, not the one that's made to do it. So I think it's a bit disingenuous for these animal rights activists to come out and say these people are making these dogs do it. No, they're not. No, they're not. Not unless they're complete ignorant fools that are in junior high school or something like that. But the professionals are certainly not doing that. Mm-hmm. Now, why do I want to address that gameness if I'm not involved in those type of activities? Well, it's because I'm involved in protection work and hog hunting work. And while I'm not looking for dogs with a hair trigger, I am looking for dogs that when we send them on a hog, they stay on that hog for that hunter's safety. Because if the dog comes off the hog, the hunter is now the target or potential target of that hog. And hogs have tusks, which are weapons like knives, and they can end a hunter's career. And also for a protection dog, if a criminal breaks in my daughter's room, my daughter is now in danger of a criminal. I don't need a big dog that runs away. I need a dog that stays, even if it's, let's say 50 pounds or 100 pounds. And the reason why I say 50 pounds is, okay, maybe that criminal can beat up a 50-pound dog, but if it's game, the criminal cannot mess with my daughter because he has to deal with the dog. So as long as the dog is determined to stay there, no matter what, now my daughter is safe because she can come get me.
Say it again for those in the back. I'm just joking.
Yeah. So the dog has to be determined, whether it's on a hog or a criminal. It's not about winning. It's about keeping the person busy, the threat busy, because the objective is to stop the threat. The health and concern and longevity and the damage done to the threat. If the threat is killed, okay, that's not our objective. But if it happens, it happens. That's part of the risk a person takes when they break into my home. But it's not my objective to eliminate their existence. My objective is to stop the threat. And there's a video by a guy, I can't remember his name. I want to say it's Cliff, but I know it's Thunder Ranch. And he's asked some questions, or he's talking to his clients actually that are going through his course. And he says, if a lawyer asks you a question, why did you shoot him in the face? The answer is because I shot what was available to. I shot the threat where it was available to me. Why did you shoot him 8 times? Because why did you empty your magazine? I stopped the threat by shooting what was available to me. I'm not trying to harm them. I'm trying to stop the threat, and I will shoot on whatever's available to me. And he said, well, he was on the ground and bleeding to death. He's already been shot like so many times in the body, and blood is coming out, and you shot him again. Why'd you do that? Because he was still moving, and as long as he's moving, even if he's gonna die, he's not dead yet, and he's still a threat to me. Mm-hmm. And so my point on this is not to have force that is excessive, but it's to have the force that is necessary. And sometimes the force that's necessary is just barking at the door. That may be all you need. Okay, you go to an ATM and you have a dog in your passenger seat, and a guy comes up and says, give me your money, and your dog barks and the criminal runs away. Sometimes it's not that way. Sometimes you have to have more than that. And so you can't have more than that if the dog runs away. Right. So I will not accept an animal that quits. The dog has to be willing to continue. And then stopping the animal becomes my responsibility, whether it's through obedience or force. I can stop an animal by grabbing the collar and taking the dog off, or calling the dog off. Those are 2 different ways depending on the level of training that the dog has had and the drive that the dog is displaying. A lot of people think a dog wagging its tail is friendly, and I'm like, no, this means the dog's happy and excited. And they can be happy and excited when their owner comes home, or they could be happy and excited because you're holding a treat or a toy. They could be happy and excited because they're meeting a stranger that they want to meet, or they could be happy and excited because they're killing a squirrel, or they could be happy and excited because they're fighting a bad guy, or they could be happy and excited because they're doing training. Any of those things, some dogs will find pleasure in, and other dogs won't. Yeah. So a wagging tail, a dog that wants to be there and is enjoying it. Some dogs want to fight, and if they want to fight, they're going to wag their tail and enjoy it. A certain individual has said that our dogs are sleeve happy and they're not really targeting the person. I think it's funny. We made a video to show them that we threw a couple of sleeves on the ground and had a man calmly walk up, and the dog was told to engage, and the dog never even looks at the sleeves. And then the decoy, the helper, the agitator, whatever you want to call it, starts kicking the sleeves. So they move on the ground, try to get them to focus on the sleeve. The dog still ignored the sleeve. And then of course, we let the dog bite and do some. Well, the dog's just trying to get the man, but then the man puts on some equipment, and the dog bites the equipment, and shows that the dog is a good guard dog. Should definitely be focused on the threat. As far as weapon hands and stuff like that, you can teach a dog to target a weapon if you want to, but I agree with Ivan Blabanov on this one, and that is more of if you teach a dog to target a weapon, you're slowing the dog's entry, because the dog now has to position themselves for a specific target, and slowing the entry is a good way to get killed. You need to hit them hard and hit them fast.
Right.
And when people fall over, they drop stuff.
Yeah. So what would you say to the people that think their dog is just naturally going to protect them?
There are animals out there that will naturally protect. There's, a lot of people don't like to say that there are, but there definitely are. Training begins by tapping into a dog's natural instincts. And some dogs, their first time out, are very, very good. Other dogs have to be cultivated. The reason why everybody should train is not because you're going to turn a fear biter or an evasive dog into a champion. The reason you train is because you want to know what you're dealing with, and you want to cultivate what you're dealing with to optimize its efficiency. So a dog that may be really good with training, now you know it's good, and you can make it better.
Do you personally believe that a dog can sense evil?
No, but I do believe that a dog can sense concerns, but concerns and can be justified, but sometimes they're not justified. A dog senses what is expressed. Okay, if evil is expressing evil, the dog can sense it. But if evil is not expressing evil, the dog's not going to sense it. Now you might think, well, my dog has determined somebody was evil and I didn't know it. That's because you didn't sense it. It was still expressed, but you weren't expressed. It wasn't expressed at the level that you were able to decipher, but the dog was able to. And what I mean by that is you can trick a dog. A dog can be tricked. However, good dogs are going to be harder to trick, because good dogs are going to... This is the other thing with training. Training conditions a dog to have a certain response based upon past experiences. So if they have experiences where they are told to engage and taught to engage, and this happens a bit repetitively, just like the dog aggression can get polished to respond quicker when they see dogs after they have an encounter. The same is true for a protection dog. When they have encounters and they've gone through training, that trigger can become sharper and easier to trigger and more reliable if the training is done correctly. Somebody mentioned to me the other day that they said that they believe that we are all connected in a spiritual way. And I don't know if I'm quite onto that or not, because I believe we all have our own individuality. However, there are times when maybe you feel like you're being watched. Is that something that you are picking up from the environment? Or is that something because you are aware of things that have already occurred that leads you to a higher degree of alertness? And so, it's hard to answer that question, and can dogs sense evil? I think it's about just being aware of the environment. I'll tell you this, when I go to a restaurant, I like to sit with my back away from the door and my eyes facing the door. I like to position myself where I'm always aware. I like to sit in corners, which may be stupid to a degree because now I'm cornered, but the reason why I like that is because now nobody has access to my back, and I just want to see what's going on my right, what's going on my left, what's going on in front of me, and I also don't want to be trapped. If I'm supposed to protect my family, if there's a kid between me and the aisle, I wanted a small enough kid that I can pick them up and set them down so I can get out. Like, let's say we're sitting at a table at a restaurant and there's bench seats. So my son might be sitting with my wife, and my wife's against the wall, and my son's in the aisle, and my daughter might be sitting next to me with me by the wall and my daughter by the aisle. And if I want to get up, I can pick her up and get up. Or maybe I need to change that. Maybe I need to put her by the wall and me by the aisle, because I just like to be able to see. But my natural instinct has been always to place my back against the wall or in the corner so I can see everything. And I think dogs, when they've done a lot of training or they have a little bit of awareness in their environment, sometimes it might be considered nerves, sometimes it might be alertness. this causes an animal to just be more aware. It's hard to sneak up on a deer when you're hunting, but their deer is very nervous, and a lot of people don't want a dog that's nervy, and I agree. I don't want a dog that's nervy, but I can tell you a dog that's got a little bit of nerve to it sometimes is easier to train. But I don't want a dog that's nervy. I don't like dogs that are flighty or fearful or insecure. I want a dog that's like right now we've got a dog that if you came up and knocked on our door, she is going off. She's just very alert, and you don't even have to knock on the door. You just drive up in the driveway, start stepping up the steps. If she might know you when you drive up the driveway. If she didn't hear you drive up the driveway, you start coming up the steps. She's right there. She knows. She's sharp. She's aware of her environment. Are they sensing evil? No, they're sensing a change in the norm.
Gotcha.
Sorry, I rambled there.
No, it's good. It's funny, when I go to a restaurant or, when I've been to a bar or any place like that, I do the exact same thing. I always make sure I could see the door. I want to know who's coming in, who's going out.
Yeah, and if they have an emergency exit door, I like to, when I have an option, I like to be close to that. And if if the weather's appropriate, I'll sit on the patio.
Right. Yeah. No, I've had women call me paranoid for that, but it's just because I don't expect them to understand.
Yeah, I mean, we're wired that way. A male has got a duty to be a sheep dog or a wolf, and by sheepdog I mean an individual that protects the sheep. Mm-hmm. The sheep are our wives, our children, our women, our community, the elderly, the orphans. Those are the weak. And men have a duty to provide and protect for the weaker vessel. And I'm not saying that I'm stronger than all women. There are women out there that could beat Holly Holm could beat my butt, right? But my point is, in general, if you looked at people in most, there's very few females that could handle a man. I mean, maybe 1% can handle maybe 1% of women can handle the average man. So,
yeah,
there was a reason we're made to provide and protect. We have denser bones, we have stronger muscles, we have lower nerves, we have less nerves in our skin than females, which makes us more pain tolerant, and we just don't feel it. So we're not gonna respond to pain in the same way a woman is on average. I know there's a very common myth that women have a higher pain tolerance because they have the pain of delivery. That's not pain tolerance. That's pain that you cannot escape. Tolerate means you have a choice to escape, but you choose not to. Women can't say, "Oh, this hurts, let me just push the baby back in and I'll just wait." No, you can't do that. They have to deliver. So they take, they either do naturally or not. Men, however, will choose to fight for territory. Men will choose to go to war. Men will choose to do the harder jobs, like being a lumberjack or a brick mason, or a carpenter, where their thumbs and their fingers get squashed and they go back to work the next day. And there's times that I'll come inside and I'll get ready to take a shower, and I'll have scabs on my arms or cuts on my arms and or bruises on my arms or hands or my body, and my wife will say, "Oh, what happened there?" And I'm like, I don't really know.
Right.
I didn't notice it. It's just because we're not as sensitive. So we should be the provider and protector.
And that's what the Bible intends. Now, while we're on that topic, why have a protection dog? Why have a bandog? And obviously I know the answer to this, but for the people listening, especially the fur moms who, want everything to be ass backwards, why have a protection dog?
Oh, there's so many reasons to have a protection dog. One, I'm not always here. Okay, so if my family, if I'm not here, my kids and my wife still need a guarder, or a protector when I'm gone. That's one. Two, I don't really want somebody robbing my house, even if nobody's home. And some people might say, well, that means you value your stuff more than you value that criminal's life. Actually, what it means is that criminal values my stuff more than they value their life. Because there's no invitation here. Okay, they're not supposed to be here, and they're breaking the law to come here. So that's not my fault that somebody choose to value my stuff more than their own life. So don't put that one on me. Thirdly, an extra set of eyes. There's nothing wrong with having an extra set of eyes. Fourth, an extra nose. They can smell things before we can even see them. Fifth, a dog can not only have extra eyes, but those eyes see at night. A dog has a different kind of rods and cones. Our eyes are designed to see color. And rods, I think it's rods that see light, black and white, and cones that see color. I may have that wrong, but I think that's correct. And if you are walking out at night, you can do this to prove it to yourself. Whatever you're looking straight at, that's where you have the most color sensing receptors. Your peripheral vision is more your black and white receptors. So if you're walking outside at night and you think you see something but you're not sure, don't look directly at it. Look about 15 degrees or 20 degrees away from it and kind of look at it in your peripheral vision, and now you will see it, because now that's where your black and white receptors are. So you can see better, but without looking directly at something at nighttime. A lot of people don't know that, but it's true. So dogs can see at night. They don't run through wolves do not run through the woods at night and guess where the trees are. They see them. Okay, so they can see at night. Another reason is they have 4 legs and they're much faster than I am. 5, I might be on the toilet or in the bed asleep or in the shower. I'm not available. Or whatever number we're at. We're like 6 or 7 now. Another reason, they can be the occupier while I'm getting a firearm. So there's a multitude of reasons why I want a protection dog. Another one, a threat display, a deterrent to make that criminal go to the next home. Another advantage over a firearm even is you can call a dog back in many cases. If you pull a trigger on a gun, you can't call the trigger back. Another thing is it's less than lethal force. It might be lethal in some cases, but generally speaking, it's less than lethal force. So all of these reasons are why a person would want a guard dog. Plus, it's companion. It's a companion. I mean, when I was a kid, my best friend was my dog. You can also jog with a dog. How are you going to, there's a few firearms that you can jog with, but most firearms you're not going to want to jog with. I'm not going to jog with a Glock 19 on my hip. I'm not going to jog with a 1911 on my hip. I might jog with a dog, though.
What is the difference between an attack dog, a guard dog, a personal protection dog? Break down some of those definitions.
Okay, so first of all, you have your police dogs, which is an apprehension dog, chase, catch, and acquire, so for apprehension. That's different. I'm not into police and military dogs. I would not want to send my dog in any type of protection situation unless there was a justifiable reason, such as maybe they have my child and they're trying to load it into a van. And somebody might say, well, you're sending a dog where the kid is down there. It could be a threat. Okay, what do you think's a threat? Me sending my dog to a guy that's trying to load a kid into a van, or not sending my dog and the kid gets in the van. So, that would be about the only time I would want to send a dog. The rest of the time, it's going to be in my home, on my property in a fence, or on a leash, pretty much. And so that's going to be personal protection or sentry type work. And a sentry dog is a dog that protects a territory, like your home or a business. Or a junkyard dog is a sentry dog, a dog that's behind a perimeter and doesn't let anyone enter. And that's where the term bandog originally came from. It was like a sentry type dog, a dog that was tethered or restrained behind some sort of barrier, and it did not let people enter. Or if they released it, it would now catch the quarry, which is man or beast. They'd pursue that quarry, Q-U-A-R-R-Y. It doesn't always just mean a ravine in the mountains. It can also, or like a deep ditch. That's one definition of quarry. But another definition of quarry is like your target, whatever your prey item is, like a rabbit, a squirrel, a deer, a hog, or in some cases, a criminal. So that's going to be a dog that's released to catch its quarry. It's like an old, maybe in the 1500s or 1700s, they may have used the word quarry for prey, but it's not really used that much for prey anymore. But it still means that technically. Then you have a guard dog. That's a term I don't really use much, and maybe it's personal bias against the term, because growing up, I always used to think of Rottweilers and dogs like that as guard dogs, which to a degree, it's kind of like a sentry dog. But to me, a sentry dog really needs a higher level of fighting ability and pleasure in the combat, because a guard dog is, generally speaking, kind of like a huff and puff and hope that my bluff is enough. That's what I think of when I think of a guard dog. But a guard dog shouldn't be just that. A guard dog should be a sentry dog. But I just don't really think guard dogs are, generally speaking, on the same level. And maybe it's also biased because if you go buy some AKC book on the different dog breeds out there, and you go to the guard dog section, and you see these Mastiffs and these other breeds, guard dogs, Rottweilers, Doberman Pinschers, in the guard dogs section, most of them just don't deliver. So I like a dog that's more of a sentry dog. It's kind of a unique term that you don't really hear much anymore, because it's the same thing as a guard dog, but it's a dog that likes combat and they're willing to go. Well, an attack dog can be any dog that's going to engage when you release it. So that's going to be your apprehension type, but with a civil edge, meaning it likes to target the person, not the equipment. A watchdog is different. That's totally different. That's separate from all the other things I mentioned. A watchdog can be anything that barks. It can be a Chihuahua. It can be a Lhasa Apso. It can be a little bitty dog that can't even crack an egg, but it barks. And that's what a watchdog is. A watchdog's job is to be an alarm and let you know that somebody's there. And some people might want a watchdog and a sentry dog to work in unison if they get along. So your watchdog barks, and that wakes up your big sleepy Mastiff that's a protection dog. So now the protection dog is called to duty by the watchdog.
Okay. So explain.
And then you have your sport dogs, and a sport dog can be a dog that I like, or it can be a dog that I have no use for. It depends on what the person's objective is. First of all, sport just means a dog that competes in some sort of sport. It could be agility, it could be weight pull, it could be protection sports, it could be many different sports that are out there. Wall climb. What else do they have? They have treadmill racing. They could be fox hunting. These are all sporting dogs, and I like the sporting dogs because that, generally speaking, they're good workers. However, for protection work, protection sports are, generally speaking, not protection work. Now, there are some individuals that can cross over and be very good at crossover, where they can do a dual purpose type of dog. But generally speaking, if we go look at the best in the business, I want to mention Ivan Blabanov again, because this man is a 2 or 3 time. I know he's at least a 2-time. I thought he was actually a 3-time world champion, but he may just be a 2-time world champion. But he's a many times, like something like, I mean, I may be wrong on this, but it's like 15 times or something like that, national champion in IPO, Schutzen, and really good. And he has a series that used to be called Obedience Without Conflict, but he's changed the name that was like 20 years ago. It was 20 and 30 years ago. It was like obedience without conflict. But he's changed the name in the last 10 years to training without conflict. And he has a logo, TWC, training without conflict. And what he does is he teaches the dog to basically do everything as a level of obedience. So you have the sit, down, heel, stay, come. And I'm talking about super precision, very, very fine precision. But he's also got bite and guard, which is like a bark and hold, which means the dog's going to bark and hold you in a certain position. Some people call it the hold and bark. They can do the recalls. The dogs are literal machines, but everything is done as a type of obedience, and they're without conflict means without stress. And if the dog is doing it with no signs of stress at all, ever in its training, my question is, how is the dog going to respond when it is stressed? Now, this is an individual that I have from Ivan Blavanov. I cannot think of another person in the dog training world that I have more respect for than Ivan Blavanov. The man is the best in the business when it comes to training. But when it comes to the dog having the grit as a protection dog, he will tell you himself, if you watch one of his videos, I saw where he discussed a dog that's a true protection dog. A real protection dog is different. He even says that it's something that you can't really train. He didn't say it in those exact words, but he has said where, like, let's say you startle the animal, like you do a home invasion and nobody knows you're coming. Maybe they know you're coming, but the dog does not know you're coming. There's no signs to alert the dog that anybody is coming, and yet the person just breaks in. Many sport dogs are going to run to the closet or behind the bed or behind the couch or even just 5 feet away or 10 feet away. Ivan Blavanov says the protection dog wakes up, sees what's going on, and so quickly their instincts, they don't sit there and analyze. Their instincts are forward and engage into battle. That is a tough animal. That's a mentally tough animal. Those animals are not very common. They do exist, but they're not very common. Most animals, when caught off guard, like they're sleeping on the couch and somebody just comes rushing in, most animals are going to bolt. So it takes a really special animal, and I agree with Ivan Blavanov on that. And you can train through a little bit of that, but not much.
Okay. That makes sense.
You're tapping into instincts here. The sport trial is tapping into prey. It's tapping into developmental prey. It's done with obedience without conflict or training without conflict, so the dog doesn't feel stressed. Now, some individuals that really like fight won't be stressed in a fight, but they will be stressed when they're startled. And criminals don't say, "Get ready, here I come."
Right.
So that's why I like true gladiators. I don't like defensive dogs. I tend to not like Mastiffs. Mastiffs, generally speaking, are unreliable. They tend to be defensive. They tend to be nervous. And this is a generality. There's always exceptions to the rule. There's some. We talked about somebody that has cane corsos that does hog hunting. If he does hog hunting with those dogs, he's probably got good prey drive. He's going to have better nerves probably than most cane corso breeders. But then, so that if I was looking for a cane corso, I'd probably look at his program, whoever he is. But and if you want to mention his name or give him a shout out, I have no problem with that.
Yeah, it's Sam Diaz at Diamond Grit Cane Corso. He's a BBF member. He's got some great dogs.
Yeah, so if a dog has prey drive and he's got some defense drive, at least the dog's got the confidence to pursue a conflict. So this is a good way of suggesting balance and suggesting nerves. It doesn't mean that you're going to have the total package. You still have to do the evaluations to see what the dog does, and you should do some training, but the training is not likely to really change a whole lot about the innate response to a startled encounter. I know one guy that believes that females are better protection dogs and males are better for territory protection, because he says that females protect the
the cubs, like when a bear breaks into a cub's den, the mother protects the babies, but the males, he says, are better for territory because they have a natural territory. There may be a little truth to that, but I would not buy into that theory as a whole, because remember, the females protect their babies. They don't protect the pack. Okay, so generally speaking, if you look at a lion's pack or a wolf pack, with lions, or tigers, it's the males that defend the group. And that's not just territory, that's the group. They protect the group, they protect the pack. And with dogs, it's usually the team protects the pack. With wolves, it's usually the pack protects the pack. So if a threat comes in, the alpha wolf engages, but the rest of them are right there with him. Unless it's like a dominant, if there's two alpha males in the pack, then those two males can settle it. But if it's a stranger, the pack protects the pack. So I would be careful about getting hung up on gender when making a selection. The more important thing is to look at the traits. Look at the prey drive, look at the defense drive, look at the civil edge, look at the nerves, look at the desire to fight, and the pleasure to be there when it's there. Does it enjoy the combat? These are the things that look at the stability in the animal, that when it's being evaluated, when you're doing protection work, can the handler put their hand in front of the dog? Now, don't do that if you don't know, because you could get bit. But if you know what you're dealing with, because you've raised the animal, then it's different. And the problem with some of these, like I've seen some of your videos, you talk about not leaving kids with dogs that or kids climbing on dogs and stuff like that. And this is something that I agree with you and disagree with you on at the same time. And the reason why is because most people do not, I'm not trying to be conceited, I'm not trying to be arrogant, but it is just what it is. I've got a lot more experience than most people. And most people, you can put something right in front of them and a disaster is waiting to happen and they can't even see it. So the policy is wise to do what you said. Like, don't let your kids climb on the dogs. Be careful. Don't leave your kids unattended with dogs. That is a good policy. However, there are dogs like Reptar who I completely trust with my kids. And if I'm outside and I'm doing something, I don't really worry about it because I completely trust him. However, and this is where I say you're right and I disagree at the same time. So when I say disagree, I'm trying to politely say you're wrong. But right. but you're also right, because when we do protection training, even though Reptar's in the house and he can't see us, and there's been times like he wants to come outside and work and he would be stimulated and maybe he will bite a curtain. Okay. Mm-hmm. Or even though he's not doing anything to the kids, he's going to bite a curtain. Or maybe I'm riding a lawnmower or we're rolling the trash can down and he wants to kill the trash can when we roll it. And he wants to attack the lawnmower when we drive it. So when I'm doing things that stimulate Reptar, I'll separate him because I don't think that he's going to bite Caroline, my daughter, but I do think he could run over her. Mm-hmm. Just because he's going to try to jump over her to get to the other side because he's excited. So you're right in a sense that a dog can hurt a kid even on accident, but there are some animals that have such a high degree of stability that I'm really not worried about certain individuals. But even though I'm not worried about it, that doesn't mean I eliminate good judgment. It doesn't mean I eliminate good practice. I still maintain good practice. When I'm doing anything that I think is going to set that dog's trigger off, we separate him. We put him in a room by himself, or we put him in a crate, and everything's hunky-dory. So this is where I do agree with you. Why not place, just be safe?
Yeah. What are some of the characteristics you would look for in a dog that you would trust with your children?
Stability and submission. This is one thing that separates our dogs from sport dogs. Our dogs can do sports, I'm sure of it. All right, they're high drive, they got good prey, they got good defense. They got good confidence. They don't have a lot of defense like an edgy, nervous dog, but the defense is there enough to be reliable. And because like all right, I don't want to ever have a dog that snarls or growls, and that's what I think of when I think of defense. I don't like dogs that snarl and growl because those dogs are insecure. If their hackles come up, it's a little bit of a concern for me, because the dog is now showing a little bit more defense than I like. I like a dog that's comfortable in combat. I'm looking for the Navy SEAL. I'm looking for the MMA guy that may not be the most skilled, but he's committed. I can't remember this one guy. All right, Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz is very, very good, but he's not the best. But he's so freaking tough, man. He's so tough. I don't know if you know who Nate Diaz is.
Yeah.
But he's so tough, and that's the dog that he's very skilled, but he's tougher than he is skilled. That's what I'm looking for. And then I'm also looking for a dog that's not nervous or edgy or insecure. So if I drop a steak on the ground and I reach for it, I don't want to see any snarling or growling or challenging. I want to see my dog submit to me. And sport people don't like that because dogs that submit are, generally speaking, there's a time of recovery. So if you're doing a lot of training for a sport dog and you have to, if you want to be an MMA fighter at a high level, you have to train. And if you want to be a sport competitor, you have to train. And those people are using motivational methods a lot. A lot of positive reinforcement, a lot of negative reinforcement, and maybe some negative punishment, but there's very little positive punishment for the most part, but they still have to use it. And if you're training a lot, it gets used a lot. Not because it's a method you like to use, but it's a method just that gets, even if you only do, like, let's say shot collar or a prong collar. Let's say you don't use it all the time, but you may do a reward, once every 10 or 15 seconds. You may be some sort of positive thing every 10 or 15 seconds, and you might only be doing positive punishment once, which is like giving something that a dog doesn't want, like a shot collar or a prong collar. And there's more to it. I know that people will hear this and say, well, that's not the right way to use a shot collar. All right, it is still a way that people use it. It may not be the only way or the right way, but it's one of the ways that people use it. And so you're providing some sort of positive punishment in exchange for an undesired behavior to make a correction to the behavior. Well, when you do that, the dog pauses and drops its head and breaks eye contact because it's submitting. All right, maybe if you have a stable dog, I want that. There's other dogs that if you shock it, it's coming up the leash. It's going to bite you in the hand. And it does that when it's aggravated or confused and it doesn't know what to do, or maybe it thinks you're the challenge, you're the threat. And so, or it's saying, you're not going to do that to me. So there's many times why a dog that should not come up the leash when it's corrected. If you have a good relationship with the animal, that won't happen. But if you don't have a good relationship with the animal and you shock it, or you correct it, or you tell him to get back, that's not your dinner, that's mine. That dog's gonna come up that leash or come up or show handler aggression. I do not tolerate handler aggression. If I have an animal that's aggressive to me or my family, that dog is not going to stay here, one way or another. And people can read between the lines. Yeah, it's not going to stay here. I'm not dealing with an animal that's aggressive because, again, the dog is supposed to be an asset, not a liability. And a protection dog that bites the handler, what protects you from the dog? The dog is supposed to protect you, not be a threat to you. Right. So now I want maximum stability and really good nerves. And people might say that I want just enough nerves that they're edgy of strangers, but I don't want them to ever have nerves. And when I say just enough nerves that they're edgy of strangers, I don't mean nervous. I mean alert. If you have too much nerves, you have nervous. I don't want nervous. I can't stand a nervous dog, a dog that's looking for an escape or trembling or urinating in fear. I can't stand those dogs. A dog that's, you know what nervous behavior looks like. But I want alertness, but not nervousness. I got you. Caroline could have a plate of food next to Reptar, and Reptar would put his nose on it and want to eat it, and she could say, "No, get back," and he would yield to her because he knows if he doesn't,
I'm going to be correcting him. So he lets her correct her, and he doesn't have a problem with it. And I'm not saying that Caroline should climb on him and jump on him like a horse. That's just stupid owners. But she can use him for a pillow. By pillow, I mean she can rest her head on him while she watches TV. That's not going to be a problem. But don't stand on the dog. Don't let kids do stupid stuff that's going to potentially injure an animal and then expect it to be fine with it. Because even if the dog doesn't bite the kid, it does not help the relationship. Everything you do, like sleeping with it and putting your head on a dog, if you have a stable animal, that's bonding. I'm sure, I would imagine that you've put your head on your dog while you watch TV, or maybe laying on the floor, and you're just trying to be affectionate with the animal. And somebody might think, well, that's kind of gay for a grown man to be bonding with his animal like that. I don't care. You can call me whatever you want to. That's my buddy.
Yeah. The dog is the only creature on earth that cares about you more than itself.
It's also the most loyal animal in existence, potentially even more loyal in some ways than many people's spouse.
Yeah, that's very true. So, okay, what do you look for specifically when you're putting together a breeding pair?
All right, so obviously you want to breed the best individuals you can. So the philosophy of best to best is a great philosophy, but you also have to be careful about what if your two best dogs have the same weakness. I'm not saying they're weak. I'm just saying they share the same area that is not the. For example, let's say your dogs can jump really high. Let's say they have a lot of prey drive. Let's say they have really good nerves, and they have everything behaviorally that you want, but maybe they're both fine boned, or maybe they're both not as muscular as you want. Well, then that's not the breeding I would do. I believe doing best to best when you can, but I also believe in if you have, let's say, like us, we have 30 dogs. There's not a dog here that is not a best specimen in many ways. And some people might say, well, you can't have 30 best dogs. No, but I can have the best caliber of gene pool. My gene pool is like the best you can get. And so because this is 24 years of selective breeding, and over 24 years I've produced probably close to 2,000. I know I've produced 1,500 animals in 24 years. And people might say, that's ridiculous. Well, not really. You take 1,500 and divide it by 24, and you're going to get, maybe 60 dogs a year? And we have 30 animals here, and now we're probably producing closer to 100 animals a year. So maybe I've actually produced 2,000 animals in the last 24 years. So that's only 100 animals a year. And if you have 30 animals, let's say that 12 of them are males and 18 of them are females. A female comes in heat twice a year. That's 30. So 18 times 2 is 36 heat cycles a year. I'm not breeding them every heat cycle because I'm only having maybe 100 pups a year. And so if you have 100 pups a year, that might be like 12 or 13 litters a year. And somebody might say, that's crazy. Well, it's crazy if you have 12 dogs, but it's not crazy if you have 30. So after all these years of breeding individuals and trying to improve a gene pool, we select the best individuals that we can. We test for traits that are required to basically win, meaning they have to have the traits that are required to excel. They learn fast, they have prey drive, they have good nerves, they have toughness. That's something else I look for in a dog is I don't want dogs that are pain sensitive when working. So I make sure when I breed animals, I don't breed animals that share the same trait that I want to improve. So like one of the things that I like, and you and I both like, is we both like a stocky, muscular animal that's fit and athletic. But I don't want them so stocky that they're hindered in their agility.
It makes me think of Ranger.
Yeah, Ranger's a good combination of that.
Ranger
I like Jackson. Jackson and Ranger are a little bit more stocky than most of my dogs. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I've noticed is stocky dogs a lot of times don't deliver. But when they do deliver, man, it's fire and brimstone on the opposition.
Yeah, Jackson was actually my favorite dog of yours. And then I saw Ranger, and I got to say they're neck and neck for me.
Yeah, and that's just phenotype. That's not actually performance, but yes, I hear you.
How would you compare the two performance-wise? Was one better than the other?
Well, Jackson was a guard dog, very aggressive individual. And Ranger's a more social dog. He's more animal aggressive. He's going to end up being a good hog dog or something like that. But Ranger was literally named Ranger because he was the lone ranger or the lone puppy in the litter. He was the only one that survived. Valkyrie was old when we bred her, and she had a large litter. She was healthy in that regard. She wasn't unable to have a litter. She had a large litter, but she was just unattentive and would lay on him or get excited and step on him and stuff like that. And when we got down to just Ranger, I was like, you know what? I mean, this is all like in the first 3 days. I'm not talking about a week or 2 weeks of puppies dying. I'm talking about very quickly. She was laying on him, so I said, you know what? We're just taking the pups away. We're taking Ranger away. And I'm not losing this one. So we raised him by bottle and we may have used a foster mother, I don't remember, but regardless, we raised him by bottle because the foster mother may have kept him warm and kept him clean, but she wasn't properly nursing or something. I'd have to go back and check my records, but because I do keep records on that. But I do know this. He was raised by bottle and a lot, and he was handled a lot. And he just really loves us. Mm-hmm. But when he sees an animal, he's like, it's game on, Donkey Kong, he's just very animal aggressive. He's very difficult to breed. We had to it took us like 4 attempts to breed because he wanted to fight the females. He didn't want to hump, but we finally got him to breed, and he's a very strong dog, but he's lacking the interaction with litter mates because he never had litter mates, so he doesn't know how to interact with other animals, and that's a fault. But that's not. I don't believe that's a genetic fault. I think that was a matter of not ever having a litter mate or a mama to play with.
Talk a little bit about the difficulties of breeding, such as you lost most of that litter except for Ranger. I think a lot of people, and I've talked about this 100 times on the channel, but I think it needs to be talked about more. A lot of people think that the breeding game is easy, and at the level you're playing at, you lost a whole litter but one.
Yeah, and it's not the only time that's ever happened. It's happened a few times. Miss Bull that was a dog that I bought. And it turned out before I bought her, she had a case of mastitis, which that can happen if you don't keep your facilities super clean. I'm not saying that's what happened in her case, but regardless, she had mastitis before I bought her. She did not show signs of mastitis when I bought her. I mean, she was just because she was not pregnant. Her nipples were back in line. Everything was normal. But when she got pregnant and her mammary glands developed, you could see that there was like her breasts were hard. And when the pups were born, out of the 10 nipples that she had, only 3 of her nipples worked. The other 7 were scarred so badly that no milk came out of them. And so the milk that was coming out of the 3 that did work was infected. Because the sour milk in the other ones, I guess, contaminated the whole side. And so they were born. I didn't know this was the case with her because this was the first litter that she had with me. I didn't know that she still carried this bacteria or scar tissue from previous case. And the first day, her pups looked great. I mean, they were all super healthy, super stout, growing. I mean, just beautiful, thick little puppies. Looked like you pumped air into them. They were like swollen little puppies. Second day looked the same way. Everything's great. We're like excited. Miss Bull's doing great. She's got 10 puppies or whatever. Everything's great. Third day,
super water diarrhea. I mean, all of them are just having severe diarrhea, and we're like, what's going on? So I rolled, Miss Bull over to her side. I look at her nipples. I noticed that 7 of them don't work. I just discovered this. I didn't know because all the pups were fat, right? I didn't know. And so I'm looking at her nipples. We tried milking them, and 7 of them don't work. And the 3 that do work, you see the milk come out, but if you look very carefully in the details, there was a little bit of, not much, like a little bit of brown discharge in the milk, like maybe let's say you had like if you looked at you could see a stream of milk, and in the middle of it there would be like a line that looked like honey. It was just a dark line in the center, and it told me that she's got a bacterial infection or something along those lines. And we had to take the pups away. We had to get antibiotics. That one day, literally in one day, we lost 5 puppies. They went from fat, healthy puppies, and the dehydration was so fast that it was like the pups were put in an oven. I mean, they went from fat, healthy puppies to skeletons with skin on them. It was like I never would have thought a dog could have dehydrated that quick. It was amazing. But we got antibiotics that day, and we started them on antibiotics that day. And the next day we lost 2 more. So I was down to 3. So out of 10 puppies, I only saved 3. The first day they were great. Second day they were great. Third day we lost 5. Fourth day we lost 2 more. And the 5th day, the 2 that we still had alive, or the 3 that we still had alive, started gaining weight. And on the 6th day, those 3 puppies looked almost normal again. Puppies change and can die or recover so fast because the rate of growth is so fast at that age. Remember, a week is like a month. So for a week for a puppy is like a month for a human. So that means a day is like almost a week. And so, how dehydrated can we get in a week? That's how dehydrated a dog can get in a day. So it was pretty amazing. Not amazing in a good way, amazing as in an eye-opening way. How attentive you have to be on that. There's been many nights where I get no sleep, and then the next night might still be 3 hours of sleep. So it's not all sunshine and rainbows, There's definitely stress that goes into it, but it's a labor of love. You got to love animals. You got to care for your animals. You have to control your temper when a mama is stepping on a puppy because she's not trying to step on the puppy. And you want to get frustrated and you want to yell at them, but that doesn't do any good. So you just have to make a decision. Is this mother unattentive, and do I need to take her away for the betterment of the litter, or is she good and just needs a different environment? We have found that when we bring some animals do great outside when they whelp a litter. Some animals need to be inside when they whelp a litter. So you have to just kind of get to know your animals and see which way they're better to be.
Okay.
It's a lot of work, though. Definitely a lot of work. And here's a tip for those breeders out there. Maybe I shouldn't share all my tips because it helps the competition if you want to consider this a competition. But this is really, to me, a labor of love. So if it helps somebody, that's cool. If you have a mother that's not a good mother and you need to supplement it, don't even buy that powdered milk from Tractor Supply or these general feed stores. I wouldn't even use canned milk because some puppies don't like it. Now, you can get them on canned milk that first day or 2, but after about if they're a week old or older, it's very difficult to get a puppy on canned milk. But if you go get goat milk, not in the can, but in the carton, almost every dog will drink goat milk from a carton, and I've raised
a lot of puppies on it, and it works great. So forget about the pet milk, forget about the powder milk that you mix up, forget about the dog milks. Just go get you goat milk in a carton. They sell it at Kroger, they sell it at Walmart. It's like in a purple and white carton. It's expensive. It's like $5 a carton, and it's like what, maybe a quart or something like that. So it's not cheap, but it does work.
Gotcha.
It's maybe a half. I don't think it's a half gallon. I got one right here. I'll tell you how big it is, but it's not cheap, but it works great. And if you do have a pup that's, let's see, it says 1 quart. Yeah. So if you do have a pup that's difficult, also kind of vibrating the bottle as they nurse seems to help. It's kind of like, I guess, the vibrating of the bottle maybe feels like the mother's breathing, because when a mother is sleeping, they breathe like But when a mother is nursing and they have what's called the letdown of milk, they have an oxytocin surge and a prolactin surge or whatever, and their breathing changes. It goes like they're panting. It's like a micro pant. So if you vibrate that bottle like that dog is panting, the puppies will usually, even ones that are difficult to nurse, boom, they get into it. Mm-hmm. So and then sometimes even kind of squeezing the puppy's muzzle a little bit. It's like I guess they think it's competition of the other puppies being too close. They got to fight it there and work their way in on that nipple, and it works. So kind of squeeze the muzzle a little bit on the puppy, vibrate the bottle, and use goat milk from a carton, and you should be able to nurse your puppies just fine.
Very cool. When you're looking at a litter and you're making a selection for yourself, how do you go about that? And then when do you start any kind of, I guess I'll say, schooling process?
Sure. So, I don't really worry about the pups at all as far as making a selection or choice, other than maybe color. And I don't choose for color, but we all have our favorite colors. So I can't help but look at a dog and say, man, that's just a beautiful dog. I love a red and black brindle. I don't really care for blue that much. I don't really like the tan and black brindles. I don't really like the buckskins, but I'll keep any one of those if that's the better dog. So I'm not going to select for color, but so the only thing I can see before 5 weeks, my point, is color. Anything else, you can't see it. So I don't make any choices or decisions at 5 weeks or younger. All my decisions are going to be made after that. So then when they get about 5 or 6 weeks old, I'll get them out into the grass and get them in the yard. And I'm looking for the animal that's interested in me, but doesn't have to be by me. But I don't want the one that's independent, that wants to go. Some people like the dog that's independent because they say the independent dog is the most confident. Okay, that may be true to a degree, but it's also the one that's going to be the hardest to please, or that doesn't work to please. I want a dog that works to please. And so by having a dog that works to please, I want the dog that's interested in me. I don't want them insecure when I walk away from them, and I don't want, I want them to still be a confident animal. Of course, I want them to still be a confident animal, but I don't want them to be the one that wanders off in the woods and is aloof. So that's one thing I look for. Another thing I look for is I look for a dog that learns quickly. It doesn't have to be the highest prey drive in the group, but when it starts to understand, it doesn't need to be the first one on the bite, but when it does get on the bite, it needs to be very intense. So I'll look for a lot of prey drive. Another thing I look for is agility. I don't care how good the dog's confidence and drives are. If the dog is the slowest one in the group, I want a dog that's athletic. I also look at the gait. So if the dog is slow because it's fat and thick, okay, let's see what it's like when it's mature. That's one thing. But if a dog is slow because its gait is asymmetrical, that's a big no-no. I want a dog that's got a really good gait. That by symmetrical, I shouldn't say symmetrical, I should say smooth. I don't want to see any ticks in the dog's motion. Everything should be fluid. It should be a combination of fluid and spring still. So by spring still, I mean snappy, but still fluid in the sense that I don't see a hitch in its gait, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Then after they are showing some prey drive, I might apply a little bit of contact with them and see how they respond to it. Or if they, like, let's say I reach down and pet the dog on the side or the back while they're working the rag. If they look at my hand or let go and look at my hand because they're just checking me out, that's cool. That doesn't bother me. But after I get them where they stay on the rag and I'm petting them, then I might pinch them a little bit and see if they are sensitive to the pain. And if they're sensitive to the pain, then it makes me wonder what's their pain tolerance going to be like. That's not a deal breaker by any means, but we're looking at, you asked me a question and we're looking at fine details now. So these things can be things that are handler sensitive and not necessarily combat sensitive. So if they know it's coming from me, I don't want to do it. I want it to be where they don't know it's coming from me. Like I don't like dogs that are dog aggressive, but I do like dogs that if they get into a fight, I have to go pick them up to stop it. They don't quit. So, and the reason why I say that is, I'm talking about puppies now. So you got like 5 puppies on a rag, and sometimes when you have 5 puppies on a rag, one of them will bite another puppy because they missed the rag, and that turns into a fight. So I'm not looking for a dog that wants to start a fight with another dog, but if it does get into a fight, it's like, dude, you're Rocky Balboa. Nice guy, doesn't want to fight, nice guy. But if you're gonna, he'll fight in the ring, but he doesn't want to fight on the street. But if you insist on it, I'm your Huckleberry. That's the dog I'm looking for.